All right, what's up, everybody? It's me again. It's me again, everybody. Back at it again. So I had to go live right quick because I wanna talk about this big deal that UFC just signed with Paramount. This is definitely truly amazing. All right, give me 1 second while I wait for some of y'all to come in, but also. All right. Please, when y'all come in, don't forget to subscribe and like the video, okay? Yes, man. So that's the thing, man. So I'm excited. I'm excited. All right. Now, the UFC just signed a big deal. The UFC just signed a huge $7.7 billion deal with Paramount. All right. Why is this big? Because this is for 7 years. That means the UFC is going to get an additional roughly $1.1 billion a year, roughly, from Paramount. So my question is, that's great. Good job, Dana White. Good job. Got a big deal. Are the fighters going to get paid more? That's my question. Because, you did a wonderful job building the UFC, right, Dana White and everybody else. But you got to take care of the fighters too. Because at the end of the day, people come to see the fighters, not management. Right? So right now, roughly, allegedly, the UFC pays their fighters 18 to 90% of the revenue. Now compare that to the NBA, the NFL, the MLB, and the MLS. Those players get about roughly 50% of the revenue. So you have 90% for UFC, allegedly, and around 50% from the rest of the major sports. All right? There's a problem with that. Women NBA is even worse. Women get about 9%, but that's a different story for another day. This should definitely get paid more. Right? But the point is, these fighters, in my opinion, because of this deal, I think every fighter's contract should double automatically. I think because of this contract, whatever the fighters were getting to show and to fight, to show and to win, it should just double. So let's say if you're a fighter and you get 30,000 to show up and 30,000 to win, everything should double. UFC just signed a huge deal, right? $7.7 billion, good for them, but UFC gotta pay the fighters, okay? The fighters' pay should come up. And that's a problem with the UFC sometimes. They tend to underpay the fighters, which is not cool. All right? That's why some of the top fighters want to go into boxing. Because boxing, you get a good fight, a big fight, you can get $10 million, $20 million right quick. UFC fighters are never going to see that type of money anytime soon. Even Conor McGregor, as big as he was, as big as Conor McGregor was in UFC, this and that, whatever, they say roughly he made about $40 million fighting for the UFC. Now, he made more money outside the UFC, and $40 million is a lot of money, obviously. But compared to, for instance, Francis Ngannou, when he left the UFC, he had 2 boxing matches. I think those 2 boxing matches got him $30 million. So you see the big difference, right? So UFC, do right by your fighters, man. These fighters put their life on the line. At least double their pay. At least start with that. Instead of 90%, make it 35% of the revenue. All right? That's why come on. It's just the right thing to do. Right? Because if you watch NBA, NFL, baseball, soccer, the players get about 50% of the revenue. Right? Boxing is even more. Like boxing, those boxers get paid, especially the top boxers. All right? Even Jake Paul's out here doing circus fights, getting paid big money. But the UFC, I understand you have a lot of fighters on your on the contract. I understand that, and I know that you got to offer fights to them every year, or to get paid anyway. So I'm not a businessman when it comes to I'm a businessman, but I'm not in your business plans. But from the outside looking in, Dana White, I think you should definitely start thinking about paying your fighters more. Just double the pay. In fact, just double the show money. For those of y'all who don't know, the way it works in MMA is that you basically get 2 types of checks. Okay, you get show money and win money. What's up? What's up, Jerry? You get show money and win money. That's how MMA works. So, for instance, let's say my contract is for 30 to show and 30 to win. That means that for me just showing up to the fight, I get 30,000. Now, if I win my fight, I get an additional 30,000. So that's how MMA's fight pay works. It's usually like that. The show money and win money. My thing is, UFC just signed a big deal with Paramount for $7.7 billion. At least double the show money for other fighters. Okay? Maybe not the win bonus, maybe not the win money yet, which you should, but at least for the show money, double the fighters. Double the, just double the pay. They deserve it. I think. So anyway, that's my little 2 cents about it, man. These fighters are underpaid, right? UFC just signed a big deal. UFC just signed a $7.7 billion deal with Paramount. That is huge. That is a huge deal, and good job. Good job, UFC. Don't get me wrong, good job. But you got to pay the fighters now, right? You know, I don't fight anymore. I'm 52 years old, so I don't fight anymore. But I wish I was fighting because this is a good time to be an MMA fighter. Good time to be, and this. Now, UFC is the biggest MMA promotion out there by far. Well, what's up, Aubrey? What's up? We're just talking about how the UFC just signed a big deal. The UFC just signed a huge deal with Paramount for $7.7 billion. You know what I mean? Fire movie. Yeah. I know, right? I actually love this movie, man. Funny movie. I love Will Ferrell, man. Will Ferrell is hilarious, bro. He is hilarious. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. But yeah, man. In fact, Will Ferrell should have more movies, I think. Also, like Old Schools. Remember Old School he did? I mean, man, anyway, I can talk about him all day. But yeah, man, but the UFC, yeah. Yes, yeah, man. Great actor, funny guy, funny. Will Ferrell is a funny dude, man. I remember back then, he used to be on Saturday Night Live doing skits and just cracking. I mean, the guy's good, but Old School was a good movie, man. Old School was, to me, one of his best movies, you know? I think also Step Brothers or something like that. That's a good movie also. Was it Step Brothers? Yeah, I think it was. But yeah, man. What's up? How you doing, man? What's up? We're just here chilling, talking about the UFC just on a huge deal with Paramount for $7.7 billion. And I was just saying that the UFC should pay the fighters more because the fighters dedicate their life, risking injury, sometimes even death, to entertain us. So the fighters only get paid about 90% of the revenue, but I think they should get paid more. At least make it 35%, at least double it. Because NBA, NFL, MLB, MLS, they get paid about 50% of the revenue, roughly. So they way behind, UFC is way behind in paying the fighters. I wish I still was able to fight, but I don't fight anymore. I'm 52 years old and I don't fight anymore. Boom. But it was fun fighting though. But now is a good time to be a fighter because there's more money in fighting right now, right? And for those of y'all who's thinking about fighting, think about it hard, man, because MMA is not an easy sport. MMA is not an easy sport. I mean, you gotta dedicate your life to it, all right? And you gotta train about 4 to 6 hours a day, 5-6 days a week, So, but I tell people, if you're gonna do MMA, man, you gotta have the mindset for it. And also, if you're just starting martial arts, I recommend start with your base first. Start with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling, all right? Striking, you can start them later. You can start at the same time, don't get me wrong, but if you have to choose one of them, just do that, all right? Everybody, thanks for joining me, man. I'm gonna see y'all later, all right? Peace.